for coming here today. And my name is Donna Cooper. I am the Executive Director of Children First. And we are here because of the great Dan Miller and Devlin Robinson standing up for families who want to make sure they can care for their loved ones. And we are so happy to be here in Pittsburgh. And I want to thank the Pittsburgh Chamber, and I want to thank the state representative and the state senator for their leadership, and the chamber for hosting us here. We're just really grateful to have this opportunity to talk to people about what's happening in the paid leave landscape across the country, how paid leave creates an opportunity for the employment sector, the workforce sector, the economy of Pennsylvania. We want to be able to walk through that with you today. And with us are two people who understand the economy and the relationship of paid leave to the economy very well. Let me also introduce Tom Lamb, who needs no introduction, I know, in Allegheny County. And also, I want to say that Jamie Kalamarides.
Very good.
Kalamarides, who you will learn is an industry expert, spent decades at Prudential, and will also be talking with us about the paid leave marketplace. So our goal is today to have you walk away understanding the importance of this conversation, knowledge, so you can create your own point of view on this, so that as you're thinking about whether this is good or bad for you as a business, whether you think this is good or bad for you as a region, we hope you'll be moved by the experience in other states to understand that this is something that can really advance the economy of Allegheny County, make life better for families in Allegheny County and also in this region and in the state. And I'm going to kick it off with a short presentation, and we're going to move through this very quickly, that really tries to lay out for you what is the landscape on paid leave, what are the details of paid leave, and what's it look like in these other states. So just by way of background, 14 states have paid leave programs. Some of them are really old, like California, and some of them are brand new, like in Maine? No, Maine, yeah, in Maine, yeah. So they really range. And actually I should say 13 states in DC. DC's, one of the states in this. And in this, the states guarantee that the workers have a portion of their wages replaced in the period in which they take off for approved leave. And approved leave in some states is bonding after you have a baby, father and mother. And in some states, the approved leave also includes medical leave. So taking care of a sick parent or dealing with a personal illness. So it varies on whether a state has both bonding and illness for the family or a loved one, but the 13 states in DC provide a replacement of wages. So how does it look? So by and large, across the country, state programs offer between 6 to 12 weeks of wage replacement, not 100%, but a pretty high, for bonding, so post-pregnancy. I'm here from Children First. Jamie Baxter's here from Allies for Children. Our interest, and I'll speak for myself, is that young mothers and fathers have an opportunity to bond with their children because it's so critical to the health of the newborn and their lifetime development, right? But in addition, you'll see that it really also benefits employers. For family illness, the benefit period ranges across the country from 12 to 52 weeks. California being the 52 weeks, it's a big outlier. Most of them cap out at about 16 weeks. I will say that a majority of states that are offering leave for bonding are doing that leave at about a 12-week period. More of the more recent, so that 6-week at the bottom is an early bill passed many years ago. Most people are passing bills at 12 weeks. So that's sort of how long you get wage replacement for. In most states, the cost of paid leave is shared between employees and employers. Often it's a 50-50 match. In some states, it's only covered by employees. And in other states, employers cover all the costs. So it really runs the gamut across the country. Most are doing a split, but in some places it's a 50-50 split. I mean, it's shared entirely by employers or employees. And what I mean by the cost is there's a tax, a premium. A premium is charged to workers, much like unemployment or workers' comp. And it ranges from about 0.45% of your wages to 1.110, depending on the state program. And so, when you think about this in Pennsylvania, the bill that Dan Miller will talk about, Representative Miller talks about, we're basically in that legislation capping what could be charged to the payer, in this case in Pennsylvania, the employee, at a maximum of 1% of payroll. But hopefully, once we create the program and do the actuarial analysis, it would come in lower than that. So that just tell you where we stand across the other states. So who has paid leave in Pennsylvania and who doesn't? So based on national data, and believe me, it's kind of sketchy data, right? Nobody actually knows because reporters don't have to report who has paid leave and who doesn't. But we estimate that about 3.5 million people working in Pennsylvania are working in employers that don't offer paid leave. And that's about 66% of all employees in the state. So most people in Pennsylvania, if they're taking off for bonding or a long illness for somebody in their family, are not getting any wage replacement. Now, what's it mean in terms of companies? About 71% of companies have some paid leave. We don't know how many weeks, we don't know how much wage replacement, we don't know under what conditions, but they report to the census that they have some paid leave. And what I want to point out is that it varies by size. You can read this so you can see that larger employers, right? Larger employers are likely to offer paid leave. They have a very competitive position they need to maintain nationally, and so they will often offer paid leave. The smaller employers, the estimate is only a quarter. It may be less. I mean, there's really no way to get perfect on this data. So one of the things we wanted to talk about is what's the research say about paid leave. And so fortunately, there are many states that have had paid leave, some for a long period of time and some for like 5 years. So let's talk about California, Jersey. They're longer term, not that long. Jersey's about 6 years, I think, maybe 7. But what they've seen is that they've seen increases in productivity as a result of enacting paid leave. And the data on this compares them to their neighboring states. So for instance, there was a research study comparing New Jersey productivity from employers and Pennsylvania productivity from employers, and they found that Jersey's employers saw higher productivity after the enactment of paid leave compared to Pennsylvania. So this was a study specifically on PA, comparing to New Jersey. And what they mean by that is their revenue earnings per employee were higher than in New Jersey than they were in Pennsylvania after the enactment of paid leave. California has also had very long studies on productivity. The other thing that we see is that businesses understand that this helps them attract employees, right? So I tell a story all the time. A friend of mine was an editor at the Inquirer in Philadelphia, and they offered an editorial job to a woman who was in her late 30s. And the Trenton Times made that same offer to that woman. She took the job in New Jersey because New Jersey has 12 weeks of paid leave for bonding, right? She's like, I would come to Pennsylvania, but I'm not going to do it. So one of the things that the studies show is that employers see this as an employee attraction strategy, and especially for small employers, right? So, big employers, as I showed, more likely are offering paid leave than small. So in states like New Jersey or New York or Delaware or California or Rhode Island, the small employers are equally able to attract, like their big employers who can afford to do this on their own dime can do so. So it's a real small business benefit, medium business benefit, and it also helps large businesses because it relieves some of the cost on them. Boston Consulting Group, which is, does analysis of competitiveness, productivity, they find that it also helps with retention. So one of the things we all know right now in this tight labor market, keeping employees is hard, and employers who offer paid leave have a higher chance of retaining talent than those who don't. So in New Jersey or in California or Massachusetts, people can keep their employees more readily than than companies in other parts of the country. And so uniformity in this is going to enable our businesses to keep their talent. It's important. The other thing that businesses found, and I think this is really important, is that in New York, which is one of the states where there's been extraordinary research done, the National Bureau of Economic Research, a couple papers on this really show that employers saw increase in employee attendance, commitment to work, cooperation, and productivity after the paid leave bill was passed. So there was a period before where there had been research done and a period after. They also saw that 65% of the employers in New York State were highly satisfied with the paid leave program that was administered by the state after its enactment within 1 year. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about how these things are administered, but there's the New York studies are, this is Jersey, I'm sorry, the Jersey studies were, no, the last one was New York. The New York study was very detailed in the relative position and the impact on businesses. So Jersey had some fits and starts in running their paid leave program. When they first unrolled their program, the state did not staff up well enough, and so there was a lot of hiccups, but they reformed that, and they built the infrastructure so they could have a more business-friendly environment for administering paid leave programs, and as a result, the New Jersey Business and Industry Association said, you know what, we're seeing that small and medium and large sized businesses are comfortable with how the state's administering this now. There are obviously administrative burdens with any kind of public administered, like workers' comp, federal unemployment comp, but they are smoothed by the way that states are learning to implement these programs with the least amount of business burden as possible, and Jamie will be able to speak to that more than any. The last thing I want to mention is that the downside of paid leave that people worry about, that people will take lots more leave than otherwise because it's paid, or they will exploit the situation inappropriately. Really, the data does not show that. It certainly doesn't show it in Massachusetts, and in the New York study, in the California study, even among small businesses, they did not see that the programs were causing people to take more leave or have other negative consequences on their behavior, and Jamie can talk to that as well. So I'm going to skip this one for a second so we can move forward. So I want to make sure that people know that the other thing is that people found that businesses learned how to handle employee absences better. So when paid leave is offered, and you have to get routinized. I mean, PNC, when you guys began to offer this, you have to routinize how you manage employee absences. And for small and medium-sized businesses, what happens now, because it's not paid for most places, it's chaos, right? Somebody's going to take 2 weeks after a baby, somebody's going to take 6 weeks after a baby, it's all on their own dime. But you have to manage that absence, and you don't really have the muscle to do that. And what happened in New York is that people began to build systems that made sure in worker absences that were associated with paid leave, they had smooth processes that ensured that they didn't lose productivity. So there's a good business practice that's set up as a result of paid leave. So I'm from the southeast in Pennsylvania, I'm in Philadelphia, and you can see we are completely surrounded by states with paid leave, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. So it feels much more urgent on our side of the state, perhaps, than being bordered by Ohio and West Virginia. But in fact, we now are all competing globally. PNC's hiring from around the country. You have AI companies here, you have driverless car companies, you have Google. You are in the same labor market for competing for talent as we are. And so understanding how much that 4 of our 6 neighboring states have paid leave makes a compelling case for Pennsylvania to do more to attract talent. This is about getting talent into our labor market. So the other thing about paid leave is that it doesn't crowd out. In fact, it creates opportunity for private marketplace solutions, right? So a universal paid leave program, how it works is a company could say to their employees, hey, you're gonna take paid leave, you go sign a form to the state, and you take your leave, and we get reimbursed for the time you take off, right? Okay, fine. You don't write it to the state, you write it to your employer approves it, they get reimbursed by the state, because we all pay into that for the premium into a pool. But the other thing that can happen is a business could say to the state, you know what, we're gonna stay with our insurance carrier or we're going to bring in an insurance carrier, and they're going to manage our paid leave insurance program. And as long as that private insurance product is at whatever the state is off mandating, like let's say in Pennsylvania we get 12 weeks for post-pregnancy and we get 16 weeks for medical, as long as, and a certain percentage of wages are replaced, as long as your private insurance plan is certified as meeting that level, then you can work with a private insurer. You don't need to, as a business, work with the government. And your employees are going to do whatever you do as an employer. If you choose to work with a private insurer, they offer the same benefit package, that's how you get reimbursed for your paid leave, or you can go with the state. So 12 of 14 states have a private option side by side with a public option. And the public option is typically used by small employers who aren't going to have the wherewithal to be signing up with an insurance company, nor would the actuarial analysis be that good for them, that they'll go with the state pool because it'll be more efficient for them. So finally, paid leave keeps employers in the driver's seat. They decide how they're going to do this. Are they going to work with a private insurer? Are they going to work with the government's plan? They can self-insure, so they still have that as an option. They can just fund this out of their own insurance pools. Those of you who might work in insurance know how self-insurance works, as long as the state plan, as long as you're offering what the state plan's done, or they can choose to go with the state. So it's really, really important to understand this is not mandating that the businesses use a government program. They can decide how to do this. And one of the things about this, if you want to go to the next slide, is that this, there should be an insurance slide. Where's the next slide? Go to the next one. Oh, so I must have cut that out last night. The other thing you should know is that this is good for the insurance marketplace. So people who are in the disability marketplace, this is where they want to come in. If the state mandates paid leave, employers are going to say, oh, I need to find an insurance carrier, or I can work with the government. So insurance carriers begin to expand their products in Pennsylvania. In fact, the Insurance Federation in Pennsylvania is already looking to expand and create a paid leave product in Pennsylvania. They understand that this is coming all across the country. Pennsylvania can step up and do this. And when they do, insurers will be able to reap the benefit of that. Employers reap the benefit in productivity. Employers reap the benefit in talent recruitment. And employees obviously reap the benefit of being able to take care of themselves and loved ones. And so what we say is that without paid leave in Pennsylvania, employers in Pennsylvania are being left behind and our economy is being left behind. And with that, I just want to point out again that we have these great co-sponsors, and I want to ask them to make comments, and if we have questions, we'll come back to it at the end, but if you're okay, we'll go through this because we have four experts here that we want you to hear from. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Representative Dan Miller.
Thank you. I got this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm glad to be here and to talk about the importance of paid leave. Glad to be on the panel here with so many friends and people who are willing to share stories. Look, and Devlin's been a great partner to work with in the Senate, so I appreciate him as well. Look, the reality, of course, is that if you can't afford to take leave, then you don't have leave, right? The FMLA was a step forward, right, for many, and it came with a share of concerns that we had to adjust to, and we have adjusted to it. Overwhelmingly, we've adjusted to it, and the progress and the benefit from the program is incredibly solid. That being said, we also know that there are so many people who can't afford to take it, or who end up, I was with somebody not too long ago who was like, well, she had a baby and she was able to do 2 weeks at home. 2 weeks at home. Right? And thankfully, God bless, that it was there wasn't complications that made it even more traumatic than it is, right? But she went back to work in 2 weeks because she had no choice. And so that's the reality where we are. And I think for so many people now with it, as we are sort of coming into or adjusting to the post-pandemic world, there's expectations for workers. And there's need for employers that need all to kind of be met and understood and developed in a way that works for everybody. As was mentioned earlier, the reality of it is this is going to happen. So there will be paid leave that will be in Pennsylvania. I think we hope a little sooner rather than later, but that's what's happening. And that's what's going to be demanded, and that's what's going to need to be there. That's just it. And for so many of the small business employers that I've talked to, they're like, look, give us the help to do it. So as long as you give us the help to do it, we're in. Because they also know what happens. They end up having these great bonds and relationships with their employees, and they say, hey, look, I'd love to help. How can I help? I want her to stay at home. I want him to be there for this family issue or for this to be addressed. Because most of the small business employers are personally connected to the success of their and the well-being of their employees as well. They just need help in getting across. So look, we've seen a couple states that obviously have taken it a variety of different approaches. The House passed this in through our labor committee not too long ago. I know there's more work that is on the horizon for us to kind of navigate this together. But the key point about this is we want our businesses to thrive and be competitive in small and large ways. We want people to also not only come to Pennsylvania, but stay here. We want workers to be able to make a career that works for them and their families and grow in that way. We want Pennsylvania to be that place where people can build their future as an employee, employer, and everything in between. That being said, we have needs that need to be addressed. They're long since overdue, and we have a pathway forward that's being successful in other states, and that's what we should be trying to focus on now. Let's hear from Devlin.
Thanks for that warm introduction there, Dan. No, but everybody's going to eventually need paid family leave. You're always going to come up to a situation, whether it's your own, whether it's a spouse, whether it's another family member. I had to do it about 5 years ago, and I was in a good situation where I could afford that, but not everybody is, and it's a daunting task whenever you have to choose between a sick relative, going to doctor's offices, doctor's appointments, and your livelihood. It's a tough task, and I don't want to see anybody be in that situation if we can help it. So, with my friends in the House of Representatives, Dan Miller and his co-prime sponsor, Casey Tomlinson, and my friend in the Senate that's co-sponsoring this bill with me, Maria Collette. We've all been working on this for a better part of this year. This can create challenges for employees and employers alike. And we want to make sure that this is done right so that there's not undue burden on either parties. And that's why, we're here today, and we're working with all the stakeholders involved. But establishing a paid family leave program in Pennsylvania will give employees the peace of mind to know that in times of need, they can take the necessary time off to care for themselves or a loved one without fear of losing their job or having no income. So I'm excited to hear from the other panelists on here, and excited to see what has been done in other states to ensure that this program is rolled out in the right way. So, thanks, Donna.
Thank you. I do want people locally to know that Allegheny County should be really proud that your lawmakers have stepped forward on this. This is a region that has a lot of forward thinking when it comes to economic policy. Some of you might remember that Dennis Yablonsky a while ago served as the state's economic development czar under the Rendell administration. You've had lots of great legislation that's come out of Allegheny County. And so it really is fitting that you guys who are in Allegheny County are leading the way on something that's going to improve business competitiveness in the state. And I want to thank Representative Gato's office for having a representative here as well. Thank you very much for being here. So in starting to do work on paid leave, we definitely talked to large employers across the state who have the experience administering paid leave programs for their own employees. And you know, Tom Lamb for years has been at the forefront of things that improve the lives of children in early childhood education, and he's also been at the forefront of things that have improved Pennsylvania's business competitiveness. So it's really an honor, Tom, to have you here. Thank you so much. And we'd love to hear about your experience.
Thank you, Donna, and good morning to everyone. In many ways, the conversation about paid leave, certainly at PNC, is an evolutionary one. We have long had various leave programs for our employees, and those programs have expanded and deepened in the company over time. And the reason for that is, you know, we're the sixth largest commercial bank in the country. We have 65,000 employees. We operate in 29 states. We operate in 54 individual markets, including the 30 largest markets in the country. Our success is all about the talent of our employees. And an awful lot of our thinking is, how do we recruit talented people, and how do we keep them once they come on board? And you know, so the issues that are important to our employees are important to us. And paid leave is a big part of that. You know, we have 65,000 employees. There's a lot of families baked into that 65,000 person number. And you know, we long realized that, sure, we have to provide leave for the expectant mother so that she can, you know, finish her pregnancy healthy and bond with her child. But over time, we began to realize it's a lot more than that too. It's not just the mother, you know, it's the partner. It's, you know, the many issues that confront a family, whether it's their child or the issues relating to their parents or, you know, others in their family. So about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, we increased our time for an expectant mother to 16 weeks. Now, we didn't have to do that. I mean, as I say, we operate in states all over the country. Donna mentioned that 13 states and the district have some form of family or parental leave mandated, and we have to manage those particular requirements against our own in just about every instance, maybe with the exception of California. Our offerings outpace what most of the state programs are, because we have chosen to do that because it's a competitive advantage to keeping our employees. And you know, and quite frankly, we're a large enough company that we can manage through this. You know, I mean, I don't know how many people we might have on maternity leave at any one time. It's probably a significant number when you look at it by itself, but we have 65,000 employees. So, you know, we can work around those issues in a way that makes us productive and competitive. You know, when we are, because the companies we're competing against are the largest financial companies in the world. And you're either going to come to PNC or stay at PNC, or you're going to go, you know, to a competitor, and you know, and that's a loss for us. So it's been a natural evolution within PNC to extend, you know, medical leave, parental leave, maternity, you know, family leave, you know, and it's an issue that is under constant evaluation and constant feedback from our employees as to how's it working. You know, how is it working for managers who have to manage around employees that, you know, that are out, and how's it working for the employees? Are they comfortable that they can in fact take the leave and come back and, you know, and still be, you know, for lack of a better term, part of the team? And so it is a constant conversation that we are happy to have with our employees. And we know that these programs, make PNC more competitive because we're able to keep the talent that we recruit, and that's a huge advantage and an ongoing challenge. So happy to talk about it in any more particular, but for us, it's a talent and competition issue, and that's why we instituted it long before anybody told us we had to. So.
Let me take that for 1 second. Thanks. Tom, that's so enlightening, and boy, knowing how big you guys are really kind of freaks me out. 65,000 employees. So when we began this work, obviously we're a children's organization, and we did this for the purpose of, as I said, improving the outcomes of newborns. But we're wading into the insurance marketplace, and we're working with very serious people like the senator and the representative, and we need to understand the insurance marketplace, and we need to understand that sort of black box that all of us don't really understand, which is how does insurance work and what's the structure of things that make insurance work. And so Jamie Kalamarides, Jamie was an executive with Prudential for more than 2 decades and is now a consultant with us on this project, teaching us about how do we make sure that when Pennsylvania does this, we do it in a way that works for businesses and also works for the insurance sector, and as a result, it will also work for employees. And so I really want Jamie to offer some of his perspective on what really does make this work and what does it look like for businesses across the country.
Thank you, Donna, and I'm very excited to hear from the other panelists. Good morning. I want to just touch on 2 or 3 topics to reinforce what the other panelists have said and then address exactly what Donna's asking to focus on. First, there's definitely a need for paid family medical leave within Pennsylvania and actually across the nation. 40% of families don't have enough emergency savings to cover 3 months worth of expenses at the poverty level. And because of that, people can't self-insure this risk when they have to be caregivers or when they are bonding or when they're caring for themselves. They're still taking leave because they're sick or they have to be caregivers, but they are choosing between taking leave and paying bills. And it is more effective for us as a society to help that person and that family initially than have to surround them with all the extra things afterwards. And paid leave is not just for mothers, it's for partners, it's for workers as well. My past employer clients found that there is an employer business case for paid family medical leave. And you've heard it from Tom and you heard it from Donna in the report. Let me give a little bit more detail about why employers find this. And that is paid family medical leave reduces the amount of time the worker is on leave. Why is that? Because they're not stressed about paying the financial bills. They actually, in many cases, return to work faster because there are return to work support services that surround paid family medical leave often. They also have less financial stress because they know that this is available if they have a stressful event in the future. We know across the nation and across all income levels, 85% of American workers are financially stressed. 85%. They're not just living day to day on cash, they're worried about unexpected expenses. Knowing that there's paid family medical leave reduces that financial stress and allows people to be healthier as well. And as Thomas said, it creates loyalty, it reduces turnover, it reduces the cost of hiring. So right now in Pennsylvania, the only way to provide paid family medical leave is self-insured, as Tom described. There is a federal tax credit for employers that offer self-insurance. Simply put, and there's a lot more complications to this, it reimburses employers about 25% of the cost of providing paid family medical leave if they meet certain minimums. There are not commercial insurance alternatives in Pennsylvania yet. Pennsylvania would have to pass an insurance law that allows private insurers to offer paid family medical leave. Right now there is short-term disability, but that's just caregiving for yourself. And if you buy coverage for your spouse or your partner, it can cover them as well. But it doesn't cover caregiving for dependents, for parents. It doesn't cover a broad range of other things that can be in paid family medical leave, like safety or military leave and the like. It is, why do commercial alternatives exist in other states? Because it allows employers like PNC to have one process for managing claims across FMLA, across workers' compensation, across short-term disability, and paid family medical leave. The consumer has one experience calling in inputting the claim once, and that insurer or administrator can file all those claims and coordinate benefits on behalf of both the worker and the employer. So there are good reasons why commercial solutions are an important part of the public-private partnership that is the best practice for paid family medical leave. Commercial solutions are fabulous, but they're not enough. They generally, in a voluntary basis, and we see 8 states offering voluntary paid family medical leave without a public solution. The challenge with this is it doesn't cover enough small business workers, and it doesn't give the opportunity for self-employed and independent contractors to voluntarily join a pool where they can get insurance at lower rates. So a public solution is really an important part of this 3 pieces that are the best practices of paid family medical leave. Now, a public solution not only covers small business and independent contractors, but it can cover medium businesses and large businesses as well. And it provides a competitive floor by which the commercial insurers have to compete, and that's really important. Public solutions have a dual mission, 2 things that they're trying to optimize, sort of like the Federal Reserve doing inflation and unemployment. But the 2 things that a public solution has to provide, they have to provide accurate and timely payment of claims with best practices of customer experience. That's the first one. And the other one is they have to set prices that are stable to maintain liquidity in stress scenarios like pandemics. So they want to set prices that are competitive relative to commercial insurers, but that also don't fluctuate a lot in terms of stress scenarios. And that's what that dual mandate is. So they have to be large enough, and that's why it's important to be beyond voluntary. Everyone has to provide this so we get enough scale and so that we provide the solution to everyone. As Donna said, there are 13 states plus the district that have put in place mandatory paid family leave programs that are universal, that cover everybody. An additional 8 states have voluntary only, that is a commercial insurance only. And in places where it's universal, all but one have a public solution. New York has a complex mandatory private solution approach that gets into setting prices, and it's quite complex. Other states have not been imitating that. What we're seeing as the best practice is actually what Pennsylvania is considering. A public solution with private alternatives and still allowing self-insurance that meets the thresholds. And so I'm happy to, as we get to Q&A, talk about any details that I've seen across states or how this works, what private insurance and public solutions, how they intermix, and how employers are thinking about this.
Thank you. So one of the things that happened last night is I had a chance to have dinner with Jamie, and I find every conversation with him incredibly educating. And one of the things that he pointed out, which I would really love to just sort of put out there, is that right now, without paid leave, we already have a paid leave tax. That when people take off from work, they have to pay for their paid leave out of their own income. And employers are paying for either the loss of that employee because they've had to resign because there is no paid leave option, or employers have to figure out how they're going to fill that job on an ad hoc basis. And for a turnover, it costs 40% of payroll. So you're turning over a position, it costs a lot of money. So people are already paying for paid leave in a very expensive, erratic, chaotic marketplace. And one of the things that a paid leave program would do would share the cost of that across the entire labor market so that you have a more stable environment, it's less cost for everybody, and it would certainly even out the experience that employers have. And I had really never thought about that we're all paying one way or another. So I don't know if either of you have any comments on anything that Tom or Jamie said. I just want to, before I open up for questions.
I would just say, you know, as representatives here in Pennsylvania, Dan and I, we want to make sure that Pennsylvania is competitive in the labor field. You know, just as Tom said, that they want to make sure that their employees are taken care of and they want to stay in their business. We want our labor force to stay in Pennsylvania, and we want the Pennsylvania worker to be or the Pennsylvania environment to be competitive. And so that's, you know, my motivation for supporting this as well, is to, you know, take those people that are over in neighboring states and say, come on over to Pennsylvania. We are, you know, one of the most competitive states to do business in. So.
Yeah, and I think it's all good points about what is what are the costs of our current system, and there are costs to the employees, the employers, the taxpayers as a whole, a climate in general, and then there's also those family moments that are not going to be counted in such a way, but we all know what happens when we miss them, or we're not as present as we wish we could. So there are so many things that strike us as a negative in the current system that we have. So the question is, how do we transition out of it and into something that works for all parties, and, as my friend Devlin had talked about there, not only keeps us competitive, but hopefully more competitive. Like, we want to, the goal from us, and seldom do we sit there and go, how do we keep Pennsylvania middling, right? How can they be mid, right? As my kid would say, maybe can Pennsylvania be mid? Now, look, we don't want Pennsylvania to be mid. We want Pennsylvania to be a leading place for employers and employees to come here to work and to have a life here. And so those are key components as to how to do it. You know, my belief is that what we have is we have a plan, and we have a direction that can go, and we are much more closer to the goal than not. And so with the bipartisan help that Devlin helps bring, obviously with it, and work with business partners here, it's great to hear some of the how larger businesses like PNC can't get much bigger, you know, as to how you guys have focused on your, but the key thing to me, Tom, with what they were saying to you is you were responding to what the need of your staff is, and that's it. If paid leave didn't matter, then why would people ask so much about it?
So, any questions from folks? It's a lot to take in, a lot of information. Yeah, Phil.
We heard a little bit on where the bill is on the House side and the Senate side. Do we know sort of status update on sort of where things are at?
So yeah, it's in the Labor and Industry Committee, and I am the chairman of that committee. So go figure. But like I said, you know, the purpose of the committee is to kind of hash out all the details to make sure that we present the full Senate with the best bill possible that's going to be passed. So I would just say stay tuned, and I think that you'll be hearing good things about it.
Did you have a question?
I did, but it was the same question.
Oh, okay, great. Good. Eager to know about where things are in the Senate. That's great. Any other questions? Dan?
So, Senator Robinson, you're a veteran. You know, how could this program help, you know, veterans kind of re-enter the workforce a bit easier, but also maybe start their own business? You know, it's such a challenge for veterans when they come back to really re-enter. How could this program really get them more accustomed back to it?
Sure. You know, veterans have a host of injuries, you know, visible and invisible injuries from their service. The VA, you know, provides a lot of care for those veterans as best they can, but you know, the reality is that that's also a place where people are working 9 to 5 as well. So it's very difficult for a veteran to re-enter the workforce, get a 9-to-5 job, and take care of those illnesses that they have sustained, in that 9-to-5 time frame as well. So this could help them re-enter the workforce and be able to get those, take the time that they need to get those injuries taken care of.
Yeah, thanks. And look, it's this so much good information, obviously, that's in this report here too. But look, part of the whole, we need to, and stigma has impacts in so many ways. A lot of care that can be provided. We need to be sure that people have less roadblocks to going to get the care, hopefully before things get troubling, even more troubling than not. Any roadblock that you put in there that pushes people, well, okay, I guess I won't. Maybe I'll find a time to get over there. Maybe this will work, or I'll take care of it. We all know what happens when you delay, whether it's unaddressed mental health that isn't being focused on, or a cancer screen that you should have had, right? You're like, well, maybe I'll get there. I'll hope to get there at some point. So whether it's on the health side, we want people to get in and preemptively be on top of things, or we just want people to the production at the workplace to be as strong as it should be, right? The benefits of these programs are clear. So there's so much there, and this is why this effort here is pro-family and pro-business at the same time.
Yeah, go ahead.
So at the Pittsburgh Chamber, one of our priorities are making Pennsylvania more competitive, growing and retaining talent, and that's why we're interested in this legislation. But I think maybe Jamie could touch on this. The city of Pittsburgh has a Paid Sick Days Act. Can you just talk about in other states how it works whenever there's local entities that provide a similar type of service, and how businesses work through FMLA, a state program?
Thank you, Dan. Great question.
Happy to, the question is how do employers coordinate benefits across multiple solutions? And the answer is that coordination of benefits is oftentimes done by the insurer or the public solution or a benefits administrator that the employer is using to coordinate all benefits. So as I said, in the commercial market or in the self-insured solutions right now, a P&C employee would call their benefits hotline and say, I have a claim, I need to be out, and paid family medical leave usually has a 5-day waiting period. That is, the first 5 days are covered by sick leave or by paid time off or by personal time along the way. It's only after the first 5 days that paid family medical leave starts catching up. Because if someone's just got a sick child with the head cold that's going around right now, they might be having to take 2 days off to make sure that they're caregiving. You don't want to file a long paid family medical leave claim. However, in the early stages of COVID pandemic, people were out for 2 to 3 weeks with this as well, and you wanted the worker to stay home because you didn't want the worker to bring the potential flu or COVID to the workplace. So in fact, then the worker would use the first 5 days. The employer benefit solution would coordinate those benefits and make sure that the person gets paid. Did I address your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I should have mentioned that I'm a long-time childhood resident of Allegheny County, so I have a long interest in making sure that this works for the
Upper
people
St.
of
Clair.
Upper St. Clair. Yeah.
Right.
Now you basically won the crowd. It's a really good question. I know a lot of municipalities that have had paid leave and businesses in those municipalities are worried about how this all gets worked out. And in fact, when we began this work, we had a conversation with insurance brokers from across the country. We did, and we pulled together the Insurance Brokers Association. They're like, we think paid leave is really important. It'd be so great if there was just a national paid leave bill so that we wouldn't have to deal state by state. And unfortunately, or fortunately in America, states are the laboratories of democracy. And typically when you get to a place where 17 states, it's not always that way, have passed kind of these large scale social insurance programs, that they become viable federal conversations. It is the case that in the COVID experience, the Trump administration advanced and the Congress passed paid leave for every American worker. And that was an extraordinary experience where we needed it. It also showed that employers could retain it was a key to retaining employees. So we had that one moment where we had uniformity, and that was something that insurance brokers really liked. But it's messy. Democracy is so messy, right? So with that, I want to thank you all for coming here today. I want to invite you to tell employers.
I'm
sorry. Hi.
Is it okay if I ask one question?
Yes.
So you talked a little bit. I'm Emily. I'm the director of the Greater Pittsburgh Nonprofit Partnership. And so for a lot of our nonprofit partners, you mentioned the affordability challenges for the FMLA program or policy, and we also know that in terms of workforce diversity in Southwest PA, there are a lot of compounding challenges based on specifically Hispanic and Black members of our workforce. And so in looking at access to mental health services, and some of the disparities that exist in terms of the process of getting those, how has that been centered in the discussion as you're developing this?
So I will just comment one thing and then ask others to weigh in. So among those who do not have paid medical and family leave, the majority of African American and Latino workers, sheer majority of them, do not. They're more concentrated in low-wage jobs, small employers, and therefore they will not have the leave. So passing paid leave is clearly an equity benefit. Whether that means that they then get access in our understaffed mental health and physical health and care infrastructure is another question. But I will say that the data is very persuasive in Pennsylvania that by providing a uniform, universal access to paid leave, we're increasing the economic viability of workers of color. So that doesn't quite answer your question, but it begins that. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add to that.
Thank you for the question, and glad that you're here as well with it. And just a quick comment with it. I mean, look, it's one of the driving. When we started this conversation, really, I want to say 5 years ago, maybe, there were certain components that were at the heart of what we were talking about. And lifting that issue up in particular was part of it. And we came across a person who was telling a story about their dad who never got the treatment that he needed, and how that ended up shortening not only his work and productivity, but his life at the end of the day, right? So now the person who told that story was a person of color, and it was so reflective. I actually had a conversation with Ed Gainey about it shortly thereafter. This is when he was still in the House, right? And so we were talking about, in a lot, the Black experience in Pittsburgh when it came to access, not only to a leave program, but to care in general. So as Donna had mentioned, there are components, they're linked to the progress that we both have to make. But again, if you give me a program that actually has the capacity, that's fantastic. But if someone can't afford to take the time to go into it, that's a problem. There are joint issues that we have to deal with, though. So thank you for raising it.
So with that, thank you. Great question, and thank you all for being here. We're very interested in making sure that residents across the state understand what a win this is for the business sector, what a win this is for families, what a win this is for personal health and competitiveness. So any thoughts you have about sharing the data that's in this report, any environments you have where you can have this conversation with employers or employees, please share the information, invite us to be involved. Dan O'Brien, who's in the back, is helping lead state family leave across the state, but you have many stakeholders in the Pittsburgh area that are also involved in this. So I want to thank my good friends from Trying Together and Allies for Children for being here personally, but I just want to say this is something we are eager to see happen, and we're so grateful to the Allegheny County leadership here of your state senator and your state representative. Thank you very much.